Welcome back to Danielle's 1991 Nissan Figaro, and today we're going to replace the old catalytic converter with a downpipe that obviously deletes the catalytic converter. So that's what we'll go ahead and do. This was purchased from the Figaro shop, and if you have a requirement to have a catalytic converter in your state to register your car, obviously this is not something that you can do. That being said, this is registered as a classic and doesn't have those requirements. So go ahead and install this first by taking off the heat shield and then seeing what we're working with down below. I also had a new hardware kit for it that will replace the old studs that held on this. So let's go ahead and start the work. GoPro, stop recording. Okay, I don't even want to describe how long, and for some stupid reason, how long this took. So probably didn't need to take out the alternator or remove the alternator, but I will show you what I did end up having to do in order to get this piece out. First, remove the bolts that hold it on to the turbo. That was done simply with a 12mm sock or 12mm wrench to take these off. Once I did that, you also needed to break loose those two bolts that hold it to the exhaust. Moving over, in order to get the exhaust out of the way, you need to remove that nut that holds the exhaust there on towards the front of the car, so that way you can move the downpipe away. Having the alternator out of the way, which is two 17mm bolts and one 14mm bolt, gives you a little bit more space to work with. And then obviously you saw me remove the heat shield, which was just these bolts here and then the two bolts on top, and then sort of wedging it out of the way was the way that I removed that. That I think would have been the easy part. But let's go ahead and go back under, or look at the part we took off. Looking at the catalytic converter that we took off the car, you'll need to make for sure to unhook the sensor, the heat sensor that says whether it's too hot in the catalytic converter. You'll also have to remove this brace that goes over to the engine, as well as there is a piece that attaches here to the side of the catalytic converter as well. So that would need to be taken off as well. Once you take that out from underneath the car, you're going to need to remove one brace that attaches to the AC compressor. The brace went from the side here of the AC compressor back over to here to brace the AC compressor, and that piece is that right there. So I've taken it all apart. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it all back on the car. But first, let's take a look at the new piece that we're going to place in the car. So this is the new piece from the Figaro shop. I did buy some new hardware to go with it. I'm actually not going to put on those bolts. I'm going to put some anti-seize on the current upper bolts, and we'll go ahead from there, and then I will use these new ones because those bottom ones were pretty bad. I also got a gasket kit that came with it, so we'll go ahead and take a look at those gaskets real quick. Top gasket that goes here, and we also got a new exhaust gasket that goes down below. So we'll go ahead and replace those as well as we put the new part in. Nice thing about this is the catalytic converter heats up a honeycomb pattern, which you can see inside. Once that heats up, it actually burns off any additional fuel that's exits through the exhaust, therefore helping your car have cleaner emissions as they move forward. That heats up though quite a bit, which is why there's a heat sensor here. It also creates a lot of additional heat inside your engine bay, which is why you see tons of heat shields all over those things. Notice that there's no real heat shield here. I will put the upper heat shield back on the car in order to maintain that stock look, as well as keep people from accidentally reaching out and touching this hot piece. That being said, there's only one angle piece here that will be attached and reattaching to the car. So I will not be recreating all of these additional tie-in pieces. Now, also of note, let's go ahead and take a look at the weight between the two. All right, so the old catalytic converter with heat shield was a whopping 10 pounds, 9.3 inches. 10 pounds, 9.4 ounces. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what it reads. That is crazy. New one. 2 pounds, 8.9 ounces. Just goes to show you the amount of crazy difference between the two of them. So, let's go ahead and see how this thing installs. First things first, go ahead and remove the old pure metal gasket. I don't know whether the outside perimeter just gave up the ghost over time, but I will save this along with sort of all the parts that I take off this car. But we'll remove that. So we'll go ahead and put on the gasket. Notice the rounded portion down towards the bottom. Okay, now this one just drops right in. Look at that. Okay. Ask yourself, why am I not using the new studs? And one of the main reasons is I don't want these old studs to break off inside. I've been able to break everything loose, but it's not the end of the world. These studs are fine, and I can keep those studs in case the old studs break at some point in time, which I don't think will be an issue, but just in case. Oh my gosh, it's hard to see. I don't know whether I told you this, but I really, oh man, this car sometimes is a pain in the patukas. 13 millimeter. Yeah, I'm just gonna cut out about 5 minutes of really slow wrench turning and present you with the next portion of the video. We're gonna go ahead and attach the bottom before I get the top fully attached, just to make for sure everything's good down there. So let's go ahead and move to the bottom. Okay, so looking at this. Now, let's look to see where we think this piece should go. I think it's supposed to go here. So if I... go ahead and get that back. So okay, got that started. Go ahead and go back. Okie dokie. Look, I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but I've always been a firm believer that if you're working on exhaust systems, you should always use anti-seize. Again, I'm just trying to get this started, and we'll go from there. Okay. Let's move back up to the top and get those bolts put back on. Go ahead and use and tighten up the rest of those 13 millimeters. Once I find where I place the 13 millimeter end wrench. Here's one. Come on. Can't really. Okay, now I've got to get to that front one, which I'm just going to tell you that it's down here. You're just going to have to believe me. Now that I have the nut almost fully tightened, I'm able to switch to the box end side here, slide it on, and then tighten it the rest of the way, which is nice. Upper part's tight. We'll go ahead and move to the bottom section. Now, before we do that, we need to take this off, which looks like it's a 12. And once we take that off, okay, so it's got to go something like this. We got to figure that out underneath the car. Go from there. The angle piece here comes towards the front of the car and then up. It angles up, and once you put the L bracket supplied with the downpipe on top versus on the bottom like I was originally trying to do, you then can attach it with the provided bolt and nut. I did cut it down in order to give myself a little bit more room to work up there because it's a little tight. So now that we've done that, we'll go ahead and tighten all these bolts up, as well as replace this AC bracket here, the reinforcing bracket, and then ensure that everything's good to go, like putting on the alternator, and then we'll start it up. This piece was almost completely black, sort of like it is right here. I'm going to clean that up a little bit more. But don't miss opportunities to clean up parts before you put them back on your car. It'll help you see leaks later, and it also just makes parts look nicer. Again, this whole part was almost completely black, and it's just a little bit of degreaser. Simple Green, not a sponsor of this video, but they could be if they wanted to be. And it cleans the parts right up, and so they're nicer to put back on the car, and they're easier to work with later. Okay, so I put back in the dipstick, put back on the heat shield. I broke one of the bolts, so I didn't put that bolt back in, but all these bolts are in. I put the alternator back on, and I put the brace on the AC compressor. So if I did everything correctly, oh, as well as tighten the exhaust clamp or the exhaust hanger down underneath the car. So hoping everything goes well. This car doesn't like to start cold, so it might sputter around a little bit, but it should start. Oh, gotta hook back up the battery. Let's go ahead and see what we can do. Well, it wasn't running quite right, and you probably already figured it out if you were watching closely. I forgot to plug this spark plug back in. So let's go ahead and plug that back in. I think that's in. Maybe. All right. Let's see how it goes now. Get around the block, see how it goes.
Is that it?
Disconnect that light. So the So I went ahead and went through and set the idle, set the timing again, adjusted some stuff. So that way the car, I think, will run a little better. It's been hesitating off of idle, and so I advanced the timing a little bit because it was actually retarded for some reason. And then this light is the catalytic converter overheat warning light. And so I ended up taking that, which is just a rotate and pull out, and then I removed the light bulb out of it and put it in the glove box as a spare for the others. So now that that's done, the car is back together, and I just got to clean up my work area. Time will tell whether or not this works, but it seems like it's picking up and starting okay, and and the first few drives around the block, I definitely noticed a smell of some, like the paint that was on the exhaust baking off. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll gladly respond here in a couple months after the wife drives it and tells me what she thinks. So should be good to go.